Okay, well, listen, Bruce, I've known you for now over probably 3.5 years.
Yeah, it probably is.
And I was shocked when I heard there's a Bruce Muzik seminar. I thought, I know that guy. And I wanted to interview you purely because I can see you've achieved a great deal, and I'm interviewing successful people, and I consider you successful.
Thank you.
You've achieved stuff. So I've got a series of questions I ask everybody. I'd like to ask you the same. What inspired you? You're doing right now. You're doing something called Designer Life.
I have a company called Designer Life, and we do seminars, and we help people achieve their dreams, basically.
Okay, so what inspired you, or was there an event? Because from my experience, there's an event that sometimes drives people, or there are other people that inspires them. I know I was inspired by an individual that made me want to do it. So were you inspired? What were you
Absolutely.
inspired by?
It was a mixture of both desperation and inspiration. I'd left the music industry having just got to the top of my game. I'd created and written a #1 hit song here in South Africa, and I had got bored. And it was too easy. I was at the top of my game. There was no more challenge left for me. So I decided, what if I could reinvent myself and design a new life? What if I didn't have to be a musician for the rest of my life? Because when I met people, I'd go up to them and I'd shake their hand and I'd say, "Hi, my name's Bruce Muzik and I'm a musician." And I realized my whole identity was caught up in being a musician. And I thought, what if I'm not a musician? What if I am anything? What if I am this limitless possibility? What else might be possible? What would I want to do with my life if I didn't continue down the musical career path? And one of my interests has always been the human mind, how the human mind works, what differentiates successful people from people who are still struggling. And I remember when I was about 21, I read a book by John Kehoe called Mind Power, which was very profound for me. And John Kehoe in this book teaches you how to use your mind to start to attract circumstances into your life. This is long before The Secret ever came out, or any of these law of attraction movies that have suddenly made the law of attraction so popular in the last 2 years. And I used his techniques, and it was a hit. I was manifesting stuff left, right, and center. I remember manifesting a guitar. I won a guitar in a guitar competition. And I entered this competition, and I visualized winning the guitar, and I drove around in my car every day saying to myself, "I have won this brand new Fender Stratocaster guitar," over and over and over to myself like a mantra. I even had manifesting beads, like rosary beads, where I'd count how many times I'd said my little affirmation to myself, and I took massive action, and that's one of the keys, I think, that's been to my success in every endeavor. I sent, instead of sending one postcard to the magazine to enter the competition, I wrote 400 postcards. Wow. But of course, at 21 years of age, I was a broke musician, and I didn't have the postage to send them 400 postcards. I couldn't afford it. So I took an empty guitar case. I had a spare guitar case, and I thought this would grab their attention. And I took this guitar case, and I filled it with 400 postcards, everyone filled in with the competition. And I posted the magazine, the guitar case filled with postcards instead of a guitar, with the idea is like, you're going to put the guitar in the guitar case and send it back to me, right? And sure enough, 3 weeks later, I got the call out of Imagine. "Hi, Bruce, this is Top 40 magazine. You've won the guitar autographed by the band live." And I've still got the guitar to this day. And it was,
wow.
It was amazing, because then I thought, wow, this works. And that was when I'm 21. So over the following 10 years, I began studying why it worked. And I started studying quantum physics and started studying the mind, and became very interested in the mind, until I reached this point where I'd had this #1 hit song, and I wanted to change direction in my life and redesign my life. And I sat down and started planning. I said, what do I want my life to look like now? I don't want to be stuck in a recording studio for the rest of my life. What do I want it to look like? And I started designing my life step by step, exactly what it would look like and what I would be doing. And I thought, what I'd love to do more than anything is teach people how to use the mind, and how to use the mind to get what they want, like I had used it throughout my life to get what I wanted. And that's how Designer Life was formed. The company called Designer Life, because I essentially designed my life, and everybody can. And the phrase I love to use is that the best way to predict the future is to design it. And if you can design your life, you start to be able to predict the future. You were telling me just earlier how you did that in your life. When you wrote down when you were 26, you wanted your life to look a particular way, yep. And it turned out that way. You designed it. Most people, though, don't take the time to sit down and design it, so they don't get the results that they're after. And obviously, it's not just as simple as sitting down and writing it all down. It can be, but there's a whole lot of other stuff along the way. Yeah, and that's what I teach people. It's a step-by-step approach where it's easy, it's simple, and if they do the step-by-step approach, success is guaranteed. But there's a lot of step-by-step approaches out there too, and everybody seems to be teaching. Everyone seems to be a law of attraction teacher these days. Actually, by the way, like since The Secret came out, everybody's teaching success and how to become successful. But my observation is that very few people are having their students get massive results, because most people are dealing with a mindset behind. And for me, that was the most important thing. Is like everybody knows how to become successful. Most people know what to do. They're just not doing it. Right? And the reason they're not doing it is because there's a series of thought processes that are going on in their head that prevent them from taking those action steps to get out there in the world and get what they want. So what I'm committed to helping people with is dealing with the roots of the tree first, or the roots before the fruits, the mental thought processes that happen that once you're starting to think in a particular way that's supportive of success, you will take the action. It won't be difficult. For example, Tiger Woods, I'm sure he doesn't have to get out of bed in the morning and force himself to go on the golf course. His mind is so focused for what he wants. He will get up and he'll play and he'll practice. Part of that's because he loves golf, but the other thing is also because his mind is so focused and directed in the right way and where he wants to go. So that's a long... I forgot what your original question was.
My original question was, what inspired you?
Oh, yeah, what inspired me was reaching the top of the music industry and thinking, what's next? I'm bored. And then redesigning my life, and I've always been interested in the mind. And what inspired me really was making a difference. I knew ever since I was a child that I was due to make some kind of impact in the world. I didn't know what it was, but I had this thought. And I remember I read a birthday book. You can buy a book of birthdays. It's about this thick, and it gives you a reading for every... If you were born on this day, then you're this kind of person, and this is... Other people are born... And anyway, this birthday book was profound. I picked it up and it said...
How old were you at this?
I must have been 15, 16. And I picked up this book, and my birthday is on the 20th of March, which is the very last day of the zodiac, the very last day of the astrological calendar, because the 21st of March is Aries, the first sign in the calendar, and Pisces is the last sign, and I'm the last day of Pisces. So I'm the last day of the year. So I kind of interpreted that, or framed it as a kid, as that means that I must be one of the most advanced souls on the planet, because I was born on the very end day. You know, I must have been like, you know, one of the most, and I mean, I just made it up, but I believed it, and I still believe it, because it empowers me. And after reading that birthday book and seeing some other people who were born on my birthday, whose names I can't remember anymore, but I got inspired, like, oh, well, maybe there's something great for me. And in that process, I started to believe, maybe there's something great for me. Maybe there's something great for me. And that thought kind of stuck with me over and over. I know I'm going to do great work. I've got to do great work. I'm born on the 20th of March, and I'm destined to do great work. And I had no idea what it was, really, at the time. And it took me another, 15 years before that actually manifested and came to fruition. But I always knew I would do something big. And it came from there. That's what inspired me.
Now, for anybody who's listening out there to this interview, everyone's got dreams of where they want to be. And you obviously had a dream about music and getting to where you want to get to. What does it take? Because there's lots of people that say, oh, you're so lucky you're out there doing it. But what people fail to understand is, what did it take to be that person?
Okay.
And what did it take for you to become a number one?
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that question, because this is something I love to speak about. Yeah, there is no luck in success. I don't know. There's certainly no talented people out there. I mean, I think it took Tiger Woods a lot of practicing golf. And for me, I'll tell you my story of how it started. I saw my big brother, who's a professional musician, on stage at a place called the Hout Bay Hotel. And at the time, every Sunday they had jazz. And my brother went up there with his guitar and asked if he could jam with him. And he picked up the guitar and he plugged it in and he jammed with this jazz band, and he blew them all away. They were just like, who is this guy? He'd come from Switzerland. He lives in Switzerland. And he's such a great guitarist, and I thought, I want to be like you. I want to have the crowd adoring me like you had the crowd adoring you, and be that talented. So it took a vision and a dream, and something that I was passionate about. I always loved music. I was passionate about music. So there's this distinction number one. You've got to have a passion, and you've got to follow your passion. You hear that all the time, but it's just the truth. Yeah, without your passion, you'll never get out of bed every morning and do what it takes. The second is you've got to become really good at whatever your passion is, because there's a lot of other people doing it as well. And my brother was really good, and I sat down for 3 years while I was at school and practiced guitar for 8 hours a day. I would skip school to practice guitar. I would actually skip school. I'd tell my mother I was at school and I wasn't, so I could go and I'd go sit down the road at a friend's house in their backyard and practice guitar. I would come home from school and I would skip sports and get into trouble and get punished, but I wanted to practice guitar. All I wanted to do was play guitar. I wanted to be the best guitarist I could be, and I just loved it. And the more I practiced, the better I got, the more I saw improvement, the more excited I got, the more I wanted to practice. And it was just a cycle that went round and round and round. And at the end of 3 years, I was a really accomplished guitar player. And so that's the second distinction, is a lot of practice.
Yeah.
But it's not hard work, because when you're following your passion, like I was saying, the practice, you can't help yourself. That's all you want to do. It becomes all consuming. You almost need to be, I'd say, obsessed. It becomes obsessive. It's like, it's such fun. You don't want to stop, And then it was making a commitment after that to go and turn that into a career. And I left school, and my parents said to me, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to be a musician. They were like, well, musicians don't make any money. And that was a program I had to get rid of for a while, that musicians don't make any money, because that was a belief system that was in my head for a while. And I didn't make any money until I got rid of it. And then it was persistence. So now I was a great guitar player. I was following my passion. I had practiced. I had played in many, many bands. And I decided I was going to turn this into a career. And I was going to make a living out of this. And then I had to study more. And I went over to London and studied sound engineering. And for 2 years I rode motorcycles during the day while I studied at night. But again, it wasn't hard work. I didn't mind riding bikes during the day. I was a delivery boy. Because I knew that evening I was going to go to a recording studio and I was going to make music, and that made it all okay. It wasn't a problem for me to work that hard, and I immersed myself in learning. And so that's another distinction, is around learning. You've got to keep on learning and keep on growing, and love learning and love growing. And I'm not saying that's the way success works for everybody. That's the way it worked for me, and I think for a lot of people it works that way. Tiger Woods, look at Tiger Woods, he would have gone through a similar kind of process with golf. Yeah. And you don't have to start when you're young. You can start at any point. If you're committed, you can start at any point. So I could go on for hours answering just that question, but I'll stop there, because I think that kind of gives enough. And then over time, I got better and better and better. I wrote more and more and more and more songs, until eventually I wrote a #1 hit song, and yeah, that was that. And then I left the music industry, just as it was taking off.
Well, I had a similar experience in hairdressing. My vision was to be a hairdresser in London, because I came from a small town, the north of England, Preston. And my goal was to go to London and be a superstar hairdresser, have my own salon, my own brand, have celebrity DJs and celebrities come to my shop. And after 10 years of having my own shop, designed everything in that shop was the way I wanted it.
Yeah.
From the beeline that you would hear if you sit having a haircut wasn't overpowering, that you couldn't speak to your client, but you could feel the bass vibrating in your chair whilst you're having a haircut. What's
the beeline?
The bass.
Oh, the bass. Okay,
You can feel the bass.
Oh, the bass line. Got it. Sorry, beeline. I had a picture of a bee going.
You could feel the beeline in the chair whilst you're having your haircut.
Yeah.
But I could still have a conversation with you, and it wasn't. That was one qualification. I always said, when I get my own salon, I want to be able to hear the beeline in the chair, so you can hear the vibration of the bass.
Yeah.
And when I got to that point of having my salon, like you said, with what you wanted to achieve in the music, you did. For me, I had a similar story where once I got to where I wanted to get to in hairdressing, I was bored.
Yeah.
But I was at a point where people said, why do you want to leave this? Because you're doing so well at it.
Yeah.
And I met Tony Robbins, which then shifted it for me.
Got it. And you're right. Once you reach a plateau, you get bored, you enter your comfort zone, you stop growing. And then if you're a success-oriented person, the natural next step is what's next.
Yeah.
And that never ends, I don't think. Well, I'll tell you when I die, but I don't think it ever really ends. It just transforms and transmutes into a different form.
Next question. did you know? I suppose that question's really answered. I was going to ask you, did you know that you were going to be who you are now?
No.
Was that something that you saw?
No, I thought I was going to be a rock star. I didn't think I'd be transforming people's lives and helping people become successful. I was convinced I was going to be a rock star. But I did know, like I said earlier, that I was going to do something great. But I didn't know who I would be. I also had no idea I'd be the kind of man that I am now. When I say that, I mean the kind of man that has integrity, that is solid, that is committed, that does what it takes. Because as a teenager, I certainly wasn't that at all. You know, I was just, let's go party and get drunk and,
so,
you know.
If there's any teenagers out there listening, or any parents that feel their children are on the beaten track, there's still hope, right?
There's hope. My poor mother is all I can say. She was so great. She put up with so much rubbish from me. You know, I gave her such a hard time as a teenager, running away from home, and she just couldn't control me. She'd tell me to do something, and I wouldn't do it. She'd tell me not to do something, and I would do it. She'd say, "You're not going out tonight," and I'd say, "Who are you? You're going to try stop me?" And, you know, I was a nightmare, my poor mother. But thanks to her, she gave me the freedom to let me explore and make my own mistakes. And I think if it wasn't for my mother giving me that freedom, or for both of my parents who were instrumental as mentors in their own ways. I mean, neither of them experienced success in the same way that I've had, but they were both solid people. Yeah, I've got to say thank you to them. Yeah.
Right. So what does the future look like for Bruce Muzik? What do you see in the future?
What I see is a 50-foot motor yacht in the Greek islands, where I spend 3 months of the year working and creating. I've got this vision of living in 3 different countries throughout the year, and one of the places I want to live is in the Mediterranean on a boat. I just love yachts. My dad's a sailor, always loved yachts. The other one is I want to live in South Africa for a couple of months of the year, and then also live in the States for a couple of months of the year, or somewhere really metropolitan and lively. And the vision is that my year is divided up into three cycles. And there's a creation cycle, there's a action part of the cycle, and then there's a rejuvenation part of the cycle. So the creation part would be kind of like starting, launching a new business, or writing a particular seminar, or where I'm out there creating, I'm working on ideas. And I do that for a couple of months of the year, and it may not work exactly like this, but you know, we'll kind of see. And I'd like to associate that with a particular place, and I think that would be somewhere like in the Greek islands, where I'm in this beautiful exotic paradise, and I'm just creating and coming up with ideas, living on my yacht. The next cycle would be the action cycle, where I'm living in the metropolitan area in the States, probably somewhere, and going out there, getting it out there, doing the selling, doing the seminars, doing the whatever I need to do. And then another part of the year may be a rejuvenation cycle, where I'd be in South Africa with my family, just resting and enjoying and appreciating what this place has to offer. And it may be there's little mini cycles within that, but that's the vision, that's the future. And in terms of accomplishments, my big goal is billionaire Nobel Prize winner. That's the way I've kind of put it on there. I asked myself, how would I have made the biggest difference in the world? Because that's really what I want to do, is make a bigger difference, particularly to this country, South Africa, where I'm at right now. And I thought, what would have to happen? I thought, well, if I had made a big impact, I would have won some kind of prize. And then I thought, well, what's the biggest prize I could have won? Well, the Nobel Prize. So that became my target, is Nobel Prize winner, billionaire Nobel Prize winner. And that's where I'm heading. And what's so interesting, Dizzy, is once I created that goal, a whole manner of people who are very high up in the political scene in this country, I just managed to bump into and befriend. I'm very good friends with Nelson Mandela's grandson, who's wanting to become a future president of this country. And I know the brother of the president of Botswana, who's now going to be running for presidential elections. He's going to be running for president himself. So suddenly I'm like, you know, one person away from Nelson Mandela, and I'm friends with people who are going to be future presidents of countries potentially. And I asked myself why this was happening, and I realized, oh, hold on, it's because I set that goal, billionaire Nobel Prize winner. These are the people who are going to support me in making the difference that I want to make in Africa and in the world, but particularly my heart lies in Africa. Okay. So that's kind of what's in the future. We've got a book released this month, this March 2008, called Thank God I, and my story of living in an African township, which we may or may not talk about in this interview, is in in book form, and it's a kind of chicken soup for the soul type book.
Yeah.
And we got a team getting that on the New York Times bestseller list right now. So that's 2008. I think that's going to be a big part of it, and I'm hoping to do a lot of speaking in the States around racial integration, particularly. I lived as the only white man in a black African township amongst 100,000 black people for 6 months, and really learned about community and about bridging gaps in cultures and racial traditions. And one of the missions I'm on is to help unite people and unite cultures.
What's the website if anyone needs to get any more information about it?
That's www.thankgodi.com. Thank God I. And the idea is that every story in the book is titled Thank God I ... So it's a book of stories about people who overcame hardships. So it's Thank God I Was Raped would be one of the stories. Thank God I went bankrupt. Thank God I died, from the guy who had a near-death experience. And mine was called Thank God I Was a Racist. And it's all about my racial conditioning and prejudice that I grew up with in South Africa and how I overcame that moving to the African township.
So it's almost like turning whatever your negative experience into a positive.
Yeah, seeing the gifts and the blessings. Yeah, and there's some great teachers like John D. Martini's got a story in the book with me. So has Michael Beckwith, both teachers from The Secret and both amazing people in their own right. So that's, I think, going to propel my business forward and my profile forward in the States. And by the end of this year, my wife and I, Adele, want to be living in California. We're going to immigrate to the States. And so we're in the process of applying for green cards right now to do that, because I've just kind of got bored of living in London. I come to South Africa 4 months of the year, and like you said, I've done London now. There's nothing left there for me, and it's grey and cold and rainy. I need some sun and some sea again. So yeah, that's what lies in the future.
Yeah. Okay, Bruce. Well, thank you for your time. I think we will meet you again. I think shortly after the book launch would be if that's
yeah,
possible.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, Dizzy, and thank you for the interview.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
This is Dizzy Does Bruce Muzik. In fact, we just did it.
Oh boy, I'm done. Cheers. Thanks, brother. That was great.